what we do in York is similar to what you guys do in terms of broader impacts, but just framed a little bit differently. So our mandate is to work across campus, all disciplines, all faculties, to provide knowledge mobilization services to all faculty, graduate students, and staff, mostly research staff. And in case you're wondering, what does knowledge mobilization mean? I know it's not an intuitive term. So for us, it's a suite of services that enhances the two-way connection between researchers and groups external to the university. And for us, sort of what we're hoping to get is co-creation. So researchers and community working together, bringing their own expertise, their own knowledge to create something new together that they couldn't do on their own. In terms of what types of services we use, because we do work, as I say, across the campus, anyone can call us up. And we've been going since 2006, so we've got 13 years of service under our belt. And we started out with project funding, but we're now funded by our institution. We have 2 full-time staff people, myself and my manager, who work as knowledge brokers within the institution. And so our core business, at the top there, collaborative research partnerships. So this is knowledge brokering. A researcher can call us and say, you know, I'm working on a grant or a research project, and I need to work with a certain community, but I'm not really sure who to approach. They can call us and we can reach out to the university through our contacts to see if we can find someone for them to work with. But actually most of our business comes from outside of the university. So these are nonprofit organizations, NGOs, government agencies at all levels of government, so regional, provincial, federal, who say they want to work on a research project, not really sure who to approach within the university. It's a big place, so they can give us a call and we can reach to the university. And we often get asked, is there funding behind this? Sometimes there is. Sometimes the community has their own funding. Sometimes researchers have funding, but sometimes it's just on sort of a volunteer basis. We run a lot of events, collaborative events. I think there's a lot of value in bringing people together around a shared topic to just meet and interact. And some of these are pretty broad. We have topics like arts and culture, seniors and aging, which seems massive, but we do it that way because we want to see what kinds of issues come up, what kind of issues percolate for people, and if there are some good questions that come out of it. One of our flagship events is something we call KM in the AM, so it's a breakfast meeting. We bring a researcher and a community partner to present to about 20 to 25 people. They each get 5 minutes, so a little less than I have now, to talk about their topic from their perspective, and then we just open it up to conversation. And one thing we weren't expecting was, well, only one faculty comes, the one that's presenting, mainly because it's early in the morning and it's north of the city most of the times. But also, there's a real appetite for community to meet with other community, which we hadn't really realized when we first started running this. And one of the benefits there is sometimes community organizations will get together who have similar interests, and they'll come up with a research question amongst them and then approach us for someone to work on it with them. We provide training across campus. We actually just finished our first phase of a new knowledge mobilization training course called Mobilize You. And we're doing a poster session about it tomorrow morning, so I can talk to you about that if you're interested. But it's an 8-week course aimed at faculty, grad students, staff, alumni, community partners about what is knowledge mobilization and how do you do it. It's been quite good, very successful. And then we do offer grant support. So a couple of years ago, a lot of our federal funders, particularly Social Science Humanities Research Council of Canada, started to require knowledge mobilization plans with all grant applications. And so things like academic articles and conference proceedings still count, but they're asking for a little bit more than that. And that's when we started to get a lot of calls about what does that look like? How do you write about it? I have 1 page. How am I supposed to talk about this? So we won't write the grant applications. They try to get us to do that, but we say no. But we will review them. If they give us enough time, we'll give them a full review. If they don't give us enough time, we'll just give them some brief feedback on the plan itself. But ideally, we hope that they approach us early enough that we can talk about the whole project and not just that knowledge mobilization piece at the end. Because one thing we find is often the knowledge mobilization activities are embedded in the project, they just haven't pulled them out and aren't really great at articulating them. So we work with them around that. And we have a lot of planning tools that we share with them about how to write about it and how to plan for it. So the way we see this working is we've got our connecting through our events and our social media, partnering through our collaborative research partnerships, hopefully collaborating through projects, leading to impact, which other people have already talked about today. And so I'm just going to tell a quick story about what this might look like. So a number of years ago, we funded some graduate student internships. And my manager always says if we got $1 million, he would put 99% of it into graduate internships because they really work. They've been really successful for us. So one of the participants was a young researcher in Faculty of Environmental Studies, looking at disaster management. And she partnered with a local community organization called Park, which is in one of our what we call priority neighborhoods in Toronto, Parkdale. And it was looking at what we do on heat wave days. You may find this kind of odd, but we actually, more people in Toronto die of heat than of cold. Mainly because some of our older apartments don't have air conditioning, that kind of thing. So this was becoming a problem. So we have, when it gets above, I think it's about 30 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit. It's not that cold in Toronto. The city initiates what's a heat warning. And so that means that cooling centers are opened up. So the libraries become cooling centers, local community centers, that kind of thing. So Tanya worked with people at Park, this local organization, and people who lived in the community to come up with a protocol. What are we going to do on these heat warning days? So they would have a team of people go around, they'd have a list of people that they thought were vulnerable, and they'd go and meet with them, bring water, make sure your fan's working. If they're not, let's bring them to the library or one of the cooling centers. And this was the project. So it worked because it was aligned with her research interests, there was a need in the community, and it worked for the nonprofit organization that she was partnering with. So she did that for a summer, had some great results, wrote it up, presented at some conferences, and then went off and did some other stuff. And then a couple years later, the City of Toronto came up with a heat protocol. And in that document that was published, they referenced Tanya and her work and actually mentioned our internship. So for us, this is an impact because it's not just that she produced this protocol, there was this policy impact, and hopefully people were saved through her work. This is one example. And just to give you an idea of how busy our office is, we have brokered over 500 of these relationships. Now they look very different. Some of them are just a quick meeting, a lunch and learn. Some of them are research partnerships that have been going for 10 years and have had multiple stages of funding to them. So what we think we know. We need to provide value to our faculty, staff, and students and their community partners. One of our VPs of research said to us, if you can take something off a researcher's plate, then you're providing value for them. And that's what we think the value of having an institutional knowledge mobilization unit like ours is. There's a lot of faculty and grad students that do this work really, really well and don't need our help at all. And that's great. We're happy to support them from the sidelines, but there are people that, everybody's busy, this is one more thing they need to do, and if we can help them with that, do some of this work for them, then I think we're providing value. Relationships are key. We always tell people that, work on your partnerships. Oftentimes people who've been, they meet at one of our events, they keep working together years later, so you need to foster those. And also there's power in networks, as Jim was saying. We're also part of Research Impact Canada, which is a network now of 18 universities across Canada. They're doing similar things to what we're doing, so there's relationships there amongst us knowledge brokers. And impact takes time and takes many forms. The beginning, we would go back to our interns 3 months after they were done and say, okay, what did you do? And we're like, nothing. We didn't do it. Nothing happened. Leave us alone. And then it wasn't until 3 years later that we started to hear stories like Tanya's. So after 13 years, we've kind of come to know that it takes, on average, 3 to 5 years before you have some kind of story to tell. And often, actually almost all of the time, that story lays with the community partner because the researcher is going on to something else. And really their job is the research part of it, which the impact doesn't really lie there. The impacts lie with what happened in the community after the project was done. And that can take many, many different forms. And so things like metrics and just numbers don't often represent it. So we work on trying to build case studies and stories around what these impacts are.